So good morning. Lovely to see you guys again. Part 2 of our podcast, Radical Visions with Fionn and Jonathan, Fionnathan Productions. And since we met, you've hardly been out of the headlines, I would say. So maybe the first thing to ask you about is Man of the Year.
Or Men.
Men of the Year.
Indeed.
Yes. Plural.
Yeah, we didn't expect it to be a plural. Although it's called the Men of the Year Awards.
Right. Yes.
But Fionn was nominated in multiple categories.
I was.
And we went down, we put on our penguin suits. We had
Very
tuxedos
smart.
Yeah. And sure, you were one of the first names called. There were about, 24 awards. Do you want to show yours?
Yes, I do.
And Fionn called up and received the award. You can,
that's great.
And the category that you won in?
It was diversity and inclusion advocacy.
Yeah. Diversity and inclusion advocate.
That's the one.
And so that was very exciting. And I filmed it, of course, and I was going to put some music to it. It was Salt and Peppa's What a Man. And I couldn't hear it, so I went out in the hallway to get it ready so that I could post it to Instagram straight away.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I could hear what was happening in the room, because then they called my name, so I had to go running in.
Yes,
and
you literally did have to run.
Yeah, I thought the award that they were giving me was Team of the Year, and that they were just allowing me to accept it. But I only later realized that they had given me the award for Arts and Culture Advocate.
Yeah.
That was very nice to be recognized in that way, because we are artists.
We are.
So yeah, it was really fun. It was a bit of fun. Men of the Year, we can now say.
Yes, we can.
Jonathan, did you know you'd been nominated?
No. Well, I knew that we had been nominated as Male Team of the Year.
Right.
But I didn't know that.
You'd been nominated individually for those categories. So that must have been some surprise as well then.
Yes, indeed. And it was also a bit strange. Like we don't know who initially put our names forward. But it's not so much like the organization that runs it. They have Remy Martin sponsoring it and some other big sponsors. But they are, and the awards started off only 1 year ago from the like fashion, from men's fashion. They used to have like the Salon of the Year award, that kind of thing. People who work in the industry, and this year they went in a totally different direction, and so a lot of charities received awards. People who've been working in promoting cancer research. Actually, Down Syndrome Ireland, of which Fionn is a board member, received, or the president of it received an award.
He did.
And at the beginning, the host of the evening felt the need to justify having a Men of the Year award. Right.
Yeah, I was going to say that's an interesting, isn't it? Now, because of all the gender kind of.
Quite interesting. And some might ask, well, where's the Women of the Year award? And the fact is, it was the very next night in the same venue. It was a much bigger affair. And it was called something like Women of Power or something like this. And it's interesting. I mean, not to get into the gender wars or anything, but it's we have. I will say this because it ties into our social enterprise.
Yeah,
that to have a father and son,
or son and father,
team operating together in the world is kind of unique, really. It's not. Whereas, if you were to go back 100 years, a lot, maybe even the majority of businesses would have been so and so and sons, or
yes,
the father-son dyad was very much more prevalent in the world, and you could say honored in the world. And today it's virtually gone. And so I feel I would consider myself, if not a feminist, certainly a proponent of and a supporter of feminism. But I think the way I understand that is about equality. It's not about one group being above the other group. So really, I think we have to look at ways at the I'll accept relatively few ways in which men are discriminated against for being a man. And actually, my life path has brought me toward, like, as a young man, I was into dance. I liked to sew. I babysat, like, for income. So those were the kind of things that I was more into than the more traditional men's stuff. And then in my professional career, I was a teacher for many years, but before that, I was a nanny, and I experienced discrimination. I mean, some very specific ones where people just said, "Well, of course, we don't trust men to be childcare workers. That's suspect. Why would you want to be interested in children?" So there are small areas where being a man is a disadvantage, and we just think all that should be gone. That really people should be allowed to be whoever they want. So if we're going to celebrate men, that's fine too. But and actually calling it a celebration of men is kind of a risky, interesting idea, because usually we don't say anything. We just give men all the awards, right? We give men all the positions of power in the boardroom, etc. It's changing, and it's changing quickly, but it's still very unbalanced.
Yeah.
And so maybe calling for a celebration of men and a men's award for doing good things for society is a good move. We don't take too much from it. It was just a fun night, and it's great to be able to say we're Men of the Year.
Yes.
It's fabulous. It's lovely. It looked like a really nice event as well, and you guys looked, as John said, amazing in your suits, and it was just lovely to see you getting those awards. I mean, it was just great.
Thank you.
You deserve them so much. So I'm dead chuffed.
Good. Yeah.
Fionn, who was the person presenting you with the award? The woman in the big gown.
She was really dressed up nice, wasn't she? we didn't. Did you catch her name? Either of the two? No. It was a team presenting.
It was. I didn't catch her name,
but they both looked fabulous.
She was one of the hosts for the.
So how did they make the decisions about the nominees? Was that a panel or?
Well, firstly, to say it wasn't a very democratic process. It was in the sense that they didn't invite the public to vote.
Okay.
They just said, we're selecting, and the we to us is a bit. Well, I wouldn't say shadowy. It's just we
don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know how Fionn's name got in, even to begin with. But it did happen during our visit to New York City in March. Yeah. And why were you there?
To give my speech at the UN on World Down Syndrome Day.
Yes, that's right.
And because of that, there was some media attention, both mainstream and social media. So it could have been people noticing that, and some of the other nice things they said about us.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, these things just all build on each other, don't they? They
do. And I think maybe the most important thing for us is realizing that, like, this question of, like, well, who is so the organization is there's their logo, High Style, they're called, and there's a fashion magazine from which it comes, and you could ask, like, well, what gives them the right to give Irish Men of the Year awards? And the answer is they took that right. Why not? It's a good thing no one was doing, and then they did it. So it empowers us, I think, and everyone. Sort of like, well, we could create an award, for for whatever, for the most accessible building in Ireland.
Yeah.
And we could, maybe we should do that.
Oh, yeah.
But one could, like, you don't have to, in this day and age with media being free, if you take it, who gives you the right to be a social media influencer?
Yeah.
No one's giving right.
Take it. Yeah.
You just take it, right? And you can really, if you want to be a social media influencer, there's nothing stopping you,
No.
So I don't know.
That's an important point, isn't it? We have to own our own authority and experience. Yeah.
Last time we spoke, we talked about the Happiness Project.
That's right.
Yes.
And one thing I don't know if we mentioned is that in the early days of this project, when we were looking to interview some influential people, people who are in demand, we used to send a message that was sort of, please, will you, offer us some time? And eventually we copped on to a different message, which is, congratulations, we are inviting you to have an interview with Fionn.
Yeah.
And it makes all the difference, of course. It's the same request, but putting it as a, we know that our time is valuable and that our attention, our interest in you is worth something to you.
Yeah.
So it changes the dynamic, and I think that's also a really important thing in terms of how we all operate in the world. That I'm from America, where there's a lot of people who are overly confident, right? that this problem is not as extreme there. But when it comes to people who are labeled with a disability, you're way below water. You've got a lot of climbing just to get to the surface.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So things like that. So recognizing your worth, and even learning to be a promoter of yourself, and having a team, having a dad who's wanting to help you. Having parents and siblings and neighbors who are all interested in your success.
Yes.
Great thing to have. And, some people don't, and some people, I wouldn't say there's anybody who can't develop a network of support, but it's easier for some than others. But I think it's really a really useful thing to have. Friends and allies.
Yes.
Powerful if you can get it right. Yeah. Really powerful. So hot on the heels of being Men of the Year, we learn you're off to New York again. And this is to do with the Human Rights Convention and something called COSP. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. So COSP, or COSP, stands for Conference of State Parties. And these parties were the parties that ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Yeah.
And when you say parties, then we're talking about the governments of countries.
Yes.
So there are
that's right.
The UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability has been ratified not only by countries, it turns out, but by other organizations such as the EU itself has ratified. So there are multiple signatories that are not actually countries, but there's about 120 or so, as I understand it, countries out of the 180 signatories who are part of this annual conference that takes place in the United Nations in New York. And each country is allowed a delegation, and usually they're fairly small. I think in the the main assembly hall where a lot of it happens. Each country gets 1 + 5. So their main delegate, the leader of the delegation, and 5 others, so only 6 seats.
Yeah.
And so for the two of us to be chosen by the Irish government to be delegates from Ireland is kind of a big deal. The other way people get to go is that there's what are they called? Civil society organizations that have registered and been accepted as legit on a. I guess you wouldn't have to be more than national. You could. A lot of them are international organizations, so that's another way to go. But in our case, it was the government who invited us to represent Ireland.
Yes, that's right.
For this 3-day event coming up in about a week's time, right?
Yes.
10 days, I guess it is.
Yeah.
Is that the first time that you've been representing Ireland in that way?
That we've been representing Ireland in that way.
Is it the first time, or is it?
Being represented by the Irish delegation to the UN.
Being part of a delegation like that to the United Nations.
That's
However, we did represent Ireland at another world event back in the days when COVID was still changing everything, and to be able to travel internationally was quite a rare thing.
Yeah.
We got to go to the United Arab Emirates.
Yes.
Do you remember the big event that we were representing Ireland at?
Oh, as Ireland's pavilion at the World Expo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So there was a conference there about, I think it was about sports and inclusion was the theme of it. But also being Ireland, every day the expo had traditional Irish music, musicians performing, and Fionn brought his fiddle and joined in some of the sessions.
I did, yeah.
But for the conference itself, you had an opportunity to get onto the small stage, because each pavilion has its own, I think each pavilion has its own stage for every country there. And who did you get to interview as part of your happiness series, but on stage with an audience?
David Donahue,
who not only was Ireland's ambassador to the United Nations, but at a time when he and the ambassador from Kenya led a very important process.
Yes, drafting and putting together the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So he was
interviewing him on stage. Yeah.
He was one of the two key authors to the SDGs. So that was really great. So I would say in that way we represented Ireland once previously.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not at the Eurovision Song Contest, however.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But in August we're meeting friends in Finland who did that.
Yes, that's right. A few years back, the punk guys. Yeah,
that's the ones. What are they called? NPK. I don't know how to pronounce the letters, but we met Sammy. He's good friends with Marcus Vahala, who we all are friends with. And Sammy has invited us, and Sammy and Fionn are going to do a series of happiness interviews together.
Yes.
At it's called the Outsider Arts Festival in Helsinki and the area around it.
Yeah.
Because Fionn wants to interview people who don't have English.
Right.
And Sammy will make a great translator. So he's kind of he's set aside his guitar, but he still has an art studio with his friends and an art shop right in the center of Helsinki. Really exciting stuff. So it's also a learning exchange for us.
Yes.
We're really interested in people who use the arts as a tool for inclusion and for changing society.
When's that coming up?
Middle of August. That's
Yeah.
We won't be flying from Ireland to Finland though.
Uh-huh.
Right. Because I am the ambassador of Tradfest, we will be going to the Irish Fest in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the United States.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The world's largest Irish music festival. I think, although probably close second is in Scotland, a festival called Celtic Connections.
Yes.
As I understand, that's a really big one.
Yeah.
Tradfest is not as big in terms of numbers, but a very important festival that takes place in Dublin and in the surroundings each year.
Yeah.
And Fionn was asked to be the ambassador. And next year, you got to play as part of that. I guess we can't yet announce all the plans because they're in flux, but Fionn's going to play a significant role in terms of hosting people and helping the festival to become more inclusive.
Yeah.
But anyway, so as part of that was the connection to get us on stage in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And we said, oh no, there's like lots of times in life, we have two great opportunities. Which one should we do? And we said, let's do both. We'll go straight from Milwaukee to Helsinki.
Finland.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
A long flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really are globetrotters,
Yes.
aren't you?
We do enjoy that.
Exploring the whole world, you guys, on a year by year basis.
26 countries. We've
Wow.
more than that because you're 29 years old.
29. Yeah.
And we've said we've caught up to Fionn's birth number.
Yes.
That's how many countries we visited.
Yes.
So, and we may do our 30th country this year. We'll see how things unfold. So we do a lot of that. I mean, this is a question for us from a social enterprise perspective. It gives us great opportunity to share our stories and to inspire communities, but also to learn from communities everywhere.
Yeah.
But it also, it's a lot of hours in airports, and sure, we can take a Zoom call in an airport, but I think we have to be conscious of what are the opportunity costs
Right.
that are associated with all the travel, as well as the great experiences.
Oh yes.
It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Going back to New York, do you know what sort of themes they'll be focusing on this year at the COSP?
Yes, there are. The general theme is, do you remember?
No.
It's about promoting people with disability in society in preparation for a UN conference in November, which takes place in Doha. And that is about society, like social development or something like that is the name of that conference. So this one is kind of orienting toward the preparation for that conference. We don't intend to be there, but you never know.
Right.
But that's the main theme. And then there are 3 sub-themes, 3 round tables. You won't be surprised to hear one of them is about AI and technology and disability. One is about Indigenous peoples of the world and disability, and the third one is about employment. And so that's the one that we're most connected with, I think. I mean, the technology piece we have an interest in. I don't think you can not have an interest in it.
Right.
We are engaged or let's say we're prepping a really important innovation, we feel, that will help in this realm of employment and unemployment of people with intellectual disability.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Can't even sign into that. No, explain a bit more.
It sounds intriguing.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we can talk about that one. We would love to tell you about it. What do we call this project? We even have its name established.
Abundance.
Abundance, right? Yeah.
We call it abundance. And the idea is that what's to start, like, well, what's the problem that we intend to solve? The unemployment rate for people with intellectual disability in Ireland is, we were told, 94% last weekend. We've heard different numbers bandied about. And in Scotland, it's probably
the same.
About the same. And in Europe and even in the United States, it's rare to find any place where this group of people is not the most unemployed group in society. And that the numbers are stark and frankly shameful. Like, what kind of a world have we created where if you have this label, you're not welcome in the economic sphere? So there's a lot of good people who are working on progressing, fixing, finding solutions.
Yes.
The vast majority of them do what? How do they try to help people who don't have jobs, don't have a place in the economy?
Having them do things like volunteering in a charity shop.
A lot of volunteering to prep them to learn the skills of work, and then the ultimate goal.
Get to work.
The ultimate goal is to get people jobs, of course. And the kinds of jobs, if we look at them, are jobs that no one else wants to do, jobs that a lot of young people do start their work life doing, but the vast majority of those young people move on to more jobs that require more creativity, jobs that have more responsibilities, jobs that pay more, jobs where you get more choice in terms of what you wear to work every day. Like, all of these things are not there in these entry-level jobs. And really, the organizations that are helping people find jobs, it's those jobs. And they consider it a success if people just stay in those jobs for years or decades, right? Without any real growth. And so we don't think that's a big success.
Right.
And we look around and we say, well, what about entrepreneurial activities?
Yes.
That can be really good, right? We know we've collected lots of stories of people who, with support, have developed successful businesses. In fact, the world's largest sock company is owned by a man with Down syndrome and his father. So there's a father and son business in Long Island, New York, right?
That's right.
The problem with starting your own business, though, is that you might be passionate about what? Choose something.
Like making coffee.
You might be passionate about making coffee and you want to set up a coffee truck, and you'd be happy just making coffee and designing the advertisements and all the things of that. But you probably aren't that thrilled about finding your insurance and making sure that you're, meeting all the hygiene laws and the employment laws and the permits for setting up in this place and that. So that, we think, is the reason why most businesses fail. It's because people are asked to do too many things. You have to be kind of facile, at least, if not expert, in so many different realms if you're doing a business by yourself on your own. So our abundance idea is what?
Is to get people with intellectual disabilities wealth.
To get we're not interested in getting them jobs. We want to jump right to the ultimate goal of getting them wealth, so that they can really exist in this economic sphere, and they have the opportunity to buy things, or they have the opportunity to invest, or to solve so many other problems. Money can't buy you love. But, however, money can grease the wheels in many ways. Money can buy you a nice reservation in a fancy restaurant to impress your date. So, which might lead to love down the road. Can you hear us? Okay.
We can. Yes, we can.
Okay,
Great. I'm just checking something for to include before we finish. But anyway.
Yeah. So just to finish this story, our idea of abundance is that we'll create an umbrella organization, will support people in practicing entrepreneurship, supported entrepreneurship. We'll take a lot of the non-programmatic stuff off their shoulders, and we'll do the bookkeeping, etc., collectively. Or maybe we'll have someone who says, well, my enterprise idea is I want to do bookkeeping. I love that. And then we can have that person do that job for the rest of us. And really...
Yeah, so from creative approaches to practical community advocacy, taking that citizenship skills.
Yeah, that we've created this program last year that Fionn is describing about community skills.
Yes, and also leadership.
Community leadership experiences.
Yes. That as
and
well.
So it's a natural progression to this abundance idea.
Yeah.
Where we have supported entrepreneurship. I could have said it all in those two words. And we are awaiting a significant chunk of funding.
Yeah, yes.
And it could come any day, the yes that we expect.
Exactly.
Fingers crossed then.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
It sounds exciting. That's really good.
So we'll be looking for people with maybe listeners to this podcast. We'll be looking for people with intellectual disability and people who are interested in supporting and learning from. I think in the last podcast, I mentioned that I am an equal recipient of our work, although we often frame it as I'm helping you. Yes. But it goes both ways. So we're open to anybody joining us. Reach out if you'd like to learn more about abundance and how we can collaborate.
Yes.
So watch this space for more news about abundance.
Yes, indeed. We'd love to come back and talk in a year or so and tell you all the failures we've had in the in the year and the few successes as well, because we learn more from the failures.
Yes, we do. Yes.
What does it make me think of Emma's organisation, working with young people? That way might be worth putting them in touch, just in terms of.
Yeah, we love that. I mean, there's
just one of our colleagues, in terms of it's focused on young people, but it's very much about entrepreneurship, isn't it? And helping and supporting young people to take that on. But so as an organisation, they do that. It just maybe worth putting you together, connecting you, to hear a bit about what they do.
Yeah, you definitely would have met Emma.
You will have met Emma.
Emma, we were performing in the cafe in Down Street all those years ago.
Fantastic.
That's where she was working at the time. Yeah. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, this poster in the background there, which you may be difficult to read because I think it's in reverse.
Rise Together.
Rise Together was a workshop that you did over the weekend. Was about youth groups and the EU funding that is available for young people to create their own programs, which was really exciting. We love this idea. And as soon as Scotland is back as part of Erasmus Plus, at least, right?
Yes.
And, who knows?
Who knows what's? Yes, that's right. That's great. Abundance is such a great word as well, especially in the current climate of negativity and.
Yeah. It's very helpful, at least for us, but we think for others too, that if you have abundance thinking, then there's nothing stopping you, right?
Yes,
because or at least one of the main things. Maybe I shouldn't say there's nothing, because there are many unfairnesses in the world, but economic scarcity doesn't have to be real. You can, in many ways, pretend like you have the resources you need, act as if you had the resources you need, and magically you can achieve it, what you look for, maybe in a way that requires much less resource than you expected, and you just do a tiny version of the thing you wanted to do, or maybe the resources come when you believe that you can do it.
Yes, exactly. And as Samuel Beckett says, fail better.
Feel better. Yes.
Yeah, we're all about that. So maybe you don't have the resources, you try it anyway, and it doesn't work because you didn't have the resources, but you're going to learn from that experience. And so since we're thinking in those terms, and also I guess another one of our mottos is say yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that probably, we can imagine a future where that's going to be problematic for us, where we just we're just got too much going on. But right now, it's like these trips that we've mentioned, like we have in the works about 12 international trips between now and the end of the year, which, like your mother would say, has said, that's a crazy thing. You shouldn't. But first of all, most of those won't come, or only half of them will come through. And we can do that. We love doing that. And even when things fail, we learn in other ways. So for us, travel is a big part of it. So I use that as an example.
That's it. And you're meeting people and you're learning new things. And I think you both really exemplify that principle of abundance. The way you it's very clear that kind of positivity informs what you do. Yeah.
When during the I don't want to trigger anybody, but I'm going to tell a pandemic story. When when the world was changing, we had some Scottish friends who printed up masks based on some of our work, or at least did a mock-up and said, would you like us to do these? We'd love to distribute them to our community, and we'll send you a whole bunch of them. And we said, we love that. And it was Fionn's writing like that. And I might have even had 2 figures like you have there. And what was the message?
Fionnathan.
Fear nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Which is kind of it's very close in the way you say Fionnathan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we discovered, we're almost saying that every time we say our name.
I love that.
And so, but also to have that, like during that time when there was a lot of fear, right? There was a lot of fear all through communities and society. Just to remind people that like fear is not one of the great skills to achieve success.
No.
It has its place in the world, sort of anger and, all these things have their place and can be useful. But at a time when there was this pandemic of fear and also a disease, right? that we were working toward, look, we can cure the fear part. We still have the disease to deal with, but the fear part, we can cure that ourselves. And we kind of always did that before 2019 and ever since. We just feel like, why not believe that you can?
Yeah. And just the results are there for everyone to see in terms of what you've achieved. So fantastic. We will have to let you go, but our colleague Emma, who had set up today's podcast, is not here, but she had suggested that a good way to finish this podcast today would be to ask you guys, what do you love about your life?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yes.
I'm going to let Fionn go first.
Okay.
Where do you go first?
I think I'll say travel.
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
The thing you love about your life is travel.
Yeah.
Because
because of the sense of freedom. I love that.
Oh, that's good. The sense of freedom.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I understand that.
apparently the earliest residents of Ireland that are still here is the traveler community.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
The people who are a recognized group of people and in many ways oppressed, but also it turns out they're the originals.
Yes.
So traveling is a natural thing that humans do, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so what I love about my life is the kinds of things that you two have invited us to share about. I love my son. I mean, that's probably all I need to say. But I love that we have figured out a way to do things that feel meaningful in the world, like feel like they're helpful to others, while focusing on what could be considered quite selfish, right? Which is it's about self. We're an extension of each other.
Yes.
In the way that all of us are extensions of each other, but in a very much closer way. So it's what I love about my life is that I'm able to work so closely with you, and that we're able to work so broadly with many, many other people, including yourselves.
Yes.
Doing the podcast, I think there's so much more
detail
about your story and everything that you have achieved. I think, and that I think is something that would really be great to keep sharing with other people about how you've used the budget, how you've thought outside of the box completely around that and made those things happen. You know, that kind of law of attraction mindset that you have, I think, is the positive mindset you have as well, which is underlying all of how you work, isn't it, in terms of kind of belief, self-belief, and believing anything's possible, and then making things happen rather than waiting for somebody else to give you something or open a door for you. You're not doing that. You're turning it around. It's and I think we've learned a great deal more about how you've managed to achieve that, which has been great, I think, for us. And hopefully people listen to the podcast and hear that and get, inspired to get on and do some of this stuff themselves, because you're obviously not just enjoying what you do, but living a good life. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Living a life that's meaningful for you as an individual and, as a family. And so,
I mean, and like all families, we don't want to suggest there's no argy-bargy. We get in a bit of disagreements about stuff. So, I mean,
it's just life, normal life.
But sometimes people with, influencers with Down syndrome will put out the message, I'm not happy all the time. And I think that's really important as well. It's just that I think I can say our orientation is toward happiness. Like we are nearly happy all the time. So that makes things work easily. It makes us able to present ourselves truthfully on platforms like this. And we really want to thank you both for sharing your platform with us, for giving us the opportunity to get to know you more, and to your audience, just reach out. Let's collaborate.
Great.
Brilliant.
Our privilege. All the best for New York, Milwaukee, Helsinki. And if you meet any of our Scottish colleagues along the way,
we will bring your greetings. For
yes.
Wonderful. And we hope to be in Scotland again. Who knows when, but someday.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
remember and let us know when that's happening then, so we can meet up hopefully in person.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Radical Visions for Social Care podcast. If you missed the first part of the conversation with Fionn and Jonathan, you'll find it, along with all of our previous episodes, over on our YouTube and Spotify channels. If you've got a question for Fionn or Jonathan or us, please get in touch on info@radicalvisions.com. We'll be back next month with another episode, and we hope that you're able to tune in then.